Hello dirtbags, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the 2007 movie Shooter.
Shooter!
No, not that one.
There is no John Shooter.
No, not that one either. This one. I love the smell of cordite in the morning. Sometime in 2008, I happened to mention my hatred of Mark Whalberg to a girlfriend of mine at the time. She suggested that I watch I Heart Huckabees and see if that changed my mind. So I did. And I did. Later on, I happened to mention my mounting appreciation of Wahlberg to my brother. I expected him to laugh at me and call me gay, but he didn't. Instead, he wordlessly left my room, came back moments later, and threw a DVD at me, which struck me in the chest. Now, before I could complain, he said, "Watch that and get back to me. Thank me later." That DVD happened to be a copy of Shooter, and given the stupid name, my expectations weren't really that high. Shooter sounds like something a low IQ would call a sniper movie, but my pessimism was unfounded. This movie landed just before woke weirdos destroyed fun with their corporate propaganda, so it's still possible to enjoy it without sitting through a condescending lecture or suffering the indignity and cringe of social justice weenie politics. Shooter is an adaptation of Stephen Hunter's Point of Impact. Good book, go read it. It's directed by Antoine Faqua, who also directed Training Day.
Oh, you motherfuckers.
Stars Mark Whalberg as Bob Lee Swagger, Michael Pena as Special Agent Nick Memphis, and Danny Glover as the nefarious Colonel Isaac Johnson. Ned Beatty makes an appearance also, as Senator Charles F. Meacham. Shooter follows the ventures of Marine Force Recon Sniper Gunnery Sergeant Bob Lee Swagger. Swagger, also known as the Nailer, is a good old boy with a talent for killing people. In the Hunter novels, Swagger is actually a 60-something Vietnam vet, but obviously the character had to be updated. The opening shot reveals Swagger and a spotter Donnie Fenn, concealed in their ghillie suits. The pair are standing overwatch on a dirt road somewhere in Ethiopia. Their mission is to cover the egress of an advanced military unit. At least it's suggested that it's a military unit anyway. Wink wink. After Swagger and Fenn dispatch a couple of enemies with well-placed precision shots, the comms are suddenly cut, the operation goes dark, and the duo are left hanging out in the breeze while being hunted by 100 heavily armed locals. Things only get worse for the pair when a helicopter gunship shows up and strays them with a hail of bullets, killing Donnie Fenn. The distraught Swagger uncovers an M82 Beretta 50 caliber and starts popping off rounds at the helicopter, eventually downing the bird as it swings around to finish him off. Anyway, we cut to 3 years later, 36 months in military vernacular. Swagger has become a reclusive, living in a log cabin with his loyal dog Sam, surrounded by 9/11 truther books and scouring the media for the new lies that the government is peddling. My kind of jam. After being betrayed by his own people, the patriotic and honourable Gunny has become disillusioned and torn between love of his country and disposition of a shitty government.
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
Yeah, I know how you feel, Gunny. We find out later that Swagger has hunted down and disappeared the entire team that betrayed him, and Donnie. We also get clued up that he's inflicted 70% casualties on the military force that was pursuing him before pulling out. Enter Roger Murtaugh, who plays Colonel Isaac Johnson. Johnson shoves a CMH in the Gunny's face in an attempt to manipulate him into loaning 5 minutes of his time. It's long enough for Johnson to emotionally blackmail Swagger into working for him to stop a potential shooter from killing the President of the United States.
Million Michiganders. Donald Trump thinks healthcare is a privilege. Barack and I think it's a right for people to have bad healthcare.
Really, what would be the loss? Swagger swallows the bait hook, line and sinker. I think you know where this is going. From there, it's not exactly a spoiler to say that things go downhill rather fast. After doing all the groundwork to determine where and when the shot is going to be taken, Swagger is betrayed. Again. On the day of the shooting, Swagger is framed as the patsy and is shot twice by a crooked cop before he swan dives out a window and falls through an open skylight. An entertaining game of cat and mouse ensues, but Bob Swagger manages to patch himself up and escape the scene. So begins Swagger's mission to clear his name and dole out sweet, sweet vengeance on those who are foolish enough to set him up in the first place. Along the way, he is helped out by Special Agent Nick Memphis, played by Pena. Memphis has an encounter with the gunny on the day of the shooting, and after he's ninjaed to the ground and cuffed by an injured Swagger, he is told that Timmons was a setup. When the cop who comes to assist Memphis turns out to be named Timmons, the astute FBI agent begins to smell a rat. Sweet. Pena really plays the role well. Memphis spends most of his time overwhelmed by the constant twists and turns the case takes, and Pena brings a warmth and relatability to the character. I really felt for him.
Good coffee?
Yeah.
Swagger is also aided by Sarah Fenn, Donnie's widow. She's played by the beautiful Kate Mara. This girl tops the sexy meter with her dark eyes. I can see why Swagger's immediately smitten. Shooter is a movie filled with guns and explosions. I'm a big gun nut, so it had me a hello. But this movie is also more than that. It's more than just a usual shooter flick. It is a decent plot, well portrayed characters, and exhilarating action sequences. I do feel that the movie's title worked against it a little, however. It's so basic and informal that it makes the film sound like it's a J.J. Abrams piece of crap, filled with ridiculous action sequences that make no sense, pointless CGI overuse, and tacky lens flare to cover a lack of substance. I can assure you, however, as a respected movie expert, that this is not the case with Shooter. The plot is complicated enough to keep things interesting, and the characters are engaging enough to make you care about them, or fucking hate them. There's good chemistry between Wahlberg and Pena. Although things don't quite reach buddy cop levels, it's good enough to keep you invested in both Swagger and Memphis's fate.
Slow, smooth is fast, that's it.
There's so much to like about this flick. It's got an engaging story, interesting plot, kick-ass action, gun porn, and a very happy ending. Very satisfying. You'll know what I mean when you see it. Shooter harkens back to the era of Western films that feature a man being a man, dealing with evildoers the way God intended. Sensibilities in the 2020s have become so ridiculously soft that everything feels like a fluffer now. Trigger warnings instead of trigger play. There's no pompous arrogance or woke condescension in Shooter. The film isn't afraid to have clear-cut good guys and bad guys. It's not afraid to get accused of cliched action tropes or feel the need to subvert expectations.
I'm gonna start writing. I have to make another movie.
Yeah, Ryan, you round-headed buffoon. Pay attention, you might learn something. To satisfy my needs for real human storytelling these days, I usually have to resort to Korean cinema. Those people don't compromise, and they don't suffer foolish nonsense either. Keep it up, Korea. I love you. I have also heard so-called movie reviewers complain that Shooter is too long. Funny how they complain about the length of a movie yet are able to sit through episode after episode of Game of Thrones on their big fat ass with no problems. You know who you are, but you will go unnamed. Since Shooter is just over 2 hours long, I put it to you that if you find yourself struggling to keep up, you have ADHD and need to seek out immediate medical assistance. The Lord of the Rings extended version is 4 hours long. If it was 8 hours long, I would still watch the fucking thing. So I guess not all movie reviewers have the stones for this job, but the Duke is packing. Wahlberg is perfect in the role of Bob Lee Swagger. And after seeing this film, I stopped thinking of him as Marky Mark from the Funky Bunch, and instead started to regard him as a bona fide action star. I think I followed this film up with The Departed, and promptly signed up to the Mark Whalberg Appreciation Club. Don't get me wrong, however, it's not that he does anything particularly special or miraculous or really amazing Oscar-worthy stuff in this. It's just that it tends to suit his personality with his word. with his limited and stoic responses and, general mumbliness. I kind of admire that. Well done, Mark. There's hope for us all.
Slow, smooth is fast. That's it.
So, what did I take away from Shooter? Well, one thing I learned was a hell of a hangover cure. It came in handy back in the day. An improvised IV. Very nice. I also learned that sugar can be used to treat gunshot wounds. That also comes in handy, given where I live. Some other worthy mentions are Ned Beatty, who plays Senator Charles F. Meacham. He nails the sleazy and crooked politician, the perfect Bushite. Beatty seems to really relish the chance to play the bad guy and drops several juicy lines like this.
There's always a confused soul that thinks that one man can make a difference. And you have to kill him to convince him otherwise.
The difficult to pronounce Rad Shabada is great as an even more difficult to pronounce Mikhail Serbajak. Serbajak is an old sniper with a shady past who's now confined to a wheelchair. You may remember Serbajak as Boris the Blade from Snatch and every villain ever to appear in any action movie. Serbajak plays the role low-key and subtle, a man used to being a wolf who's now become a sheep.
Drop the gun, fat boy.
Donald Glover plays the role of Colonel Isaac Johnson like a black Clint Eastwood.
Think what you want.
He doesn't have much of a physical role, more like a dark shadow that looms over Swagger, so his approach works. He ain't too old for this. It's also worth remembering that this film dropped at the late stages of the Bush administration, which was full of characters like Meacham. The world was still dealing with the post-9/11 trauma, freedoms were being stripped at 90 by the Patriot Act, and the corrupt politicians were laughing all the way to the bank, while illegally invading Middle Eastern countries for opium and oil. Not to mention the sweet construction contracts that these bozos enjoyed after using the military to raise the infrastructure to the ground. Shooter taps into the fact that the military were used and abused, stationed to guard poppy fields in Afghanistan and then abandoned by the VA to live in the streets or be racked by devils of PTSD. Shooter was a direct shot at this bullshit, and it nailed it. The movie was a nice cathartic release at a time when it was most needed, especially the ending. But what we needed even more than that was a real-life Bob Lee Swagger to go and clean up shop. I jest, somewhat. See, these idiots in Hollywood nowadays would try to subvert expectations in order to feel like they were being original and brave. They would have a Bob Lee Swagger either lose or become the bad guy. Shooter is what it is. The knight errant. The old story. The good guy who rides into town on his trusty steed and punishes the wicked. Bob Lee Swagger is a man without compromise. A man like Rorschach from The Watchmen. There's no limit to how far Swagger will take things, and damn if it ain't fun to witness.
Now, I didn't start it, but be sure as hell I mean to see it through. So you get it straight. You in or you out.
In the real world, the crooks generally go unpunished, but not in Shooter. I went into Shooter with low expectations, and came out floating with a newfound respect for Mark Whalberg, and a major urge to go out to the Wicklow Mountains with a rifle and a ghillie suit. An interesting factoid regarding this movie is that the weapons and training used were provided by Frontsight, Dr. Piazza's company. He's the Magnum PI lookalike that gives out free Springfield XDs after completion of a training course. I'm lucky enough to have had the pleasure, and it was fucking delish. Also, this was the first movie I'm aware of that featured the space-age looking sniper rifle, the Shaytek 2000. Sexy ass rifle, I think. I still watch this movie about twice a year. And if you want to get extra hyped, follow it up with a movie called Hunted, which came out around the same time if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, that'll do for now. I'd like to extend my special thanks to Wushin for the suggestion. I hope it was somewhat entertaining. I'm a little low on jokes right now, but we'll get back to it soon, buddy. The Duke will be returning very soon with the first ever Dank Dude. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet, that's a surprise. But he appeared in a World War II series. He's a real guy. It is my hope to be uploading more regularly from now on. The last while I've been bogged down with technical issues and equipment and learning how the new setup works and everything like that. You know how it is in this game. If you like the content and want to be kept up to speed with a variety of things, subscribe to the Dank Ranks down below and turn on all notifications. If you were feeling extra generous, you big cheapskate, then give the video a like. Or not. Don't care much anymore. Go watch Shooter and then maybe read the novels. Swagger is a great read. But stay away from that shitty TV series of the same name. Wokeness and swagger don't go well together.
Everything woke turns to shit, okay? It's true. It's true.
Anyway, that's all I got for you this time around. Go on and bother someone else for a while. Peace out.